and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about how I found the first 6 months of my English Literature PhD at the University of Birmingham. I'm going to divide this up into 3 categories because we all love a good categorization. We do on this channel. And the first category is going to be the good, then we're going to have the bad, and then we're going to have the ugly. I suppose the good category is really the great category. I'm really doing like great, okay, and bad, but good, bad, and ugly sounds better. I feel like the 3-month one I did was more about, was it what I expected it? Like, was the actual day-to-day of the PhD what I expected? And you can go watch that video up there if you want to know about that. And this one is going to be more like, how have I found it? Emotions, feelings. Just quickly, I would say from a workload perspective, coming up to the mid-year review, which is kind of your first 6 months, we have to submit 6,000 to 8,000 words and sort of an outline of what we expect our overall thesis to look like. I have probably read about 60 books and written about 12,000 words. That gives you an idea of sort of the workload that's expected of you. Now on to the thoughts and feelings. The good. I would say overall my experience has been incredibly positive. I have found my supervisors invaluable in helping me focus, in helping me structure my PhD. Whenever I have my monthly meeting with them, I come out of it feeling so much more enthusiastic, feeling so much more focused, feeling so much more like, yeah, I can do this. Whereas normally I go into those meetings, I'm like, oh my god, what have I spent the last month doing? Was I doing anything useful? I find my supervisor meetings really helpful. I love both my supervisors. Is it too soon to say I love them after 6 months? They won't watch this video. We'll say that. Yeah, so that's going really well. I'm loving the supervision side. I'm finding them both very useful sources of knowledge, it's just so far really positive. Awkward bisexual thumbs up there. The other thing that I have really loved is I have actually found the community at the University of Birmingham, the postgraduate community, really strong and really active. I've made a lot of friends who I see in both social situations and then see at kind of more official University of Birmingham events that they put on for PhD students, and they do put those on quite regularly. I think having Westmere, which if you don't know is the physical place that PhD students can go, really helpful. And I actually got my desk a week before this all happened, lockdown, self-isolation. So I haven't been able to use it much because I've only had it, well, I've technically had it, but I had it for a week when I could still use it. I think it's really good that there is a space you could go, and even though before I had a desk there, I was going there for social events, there was some gigs there was some like work in progress things there, so it's a real good place to congregate for both socialising with other PhD students and also then working with other PhD students and just going there to do work. So I've had meetings there because they have rooms that you can just go into and use. So overall, I would say the PhD postgraduate researchers community at the University of Birmingham is really good. You have to be sort of willing to initially maybe feel a bit uncomfortable, talk to people, you know, you're not sure where you fit in yet, you feel a bit like, oh, but I think once you break past that, and this is coming from someone who has social anxiety, there's a really great community there to support you both mentally and emotionally, as well as, you know, practically, because, you know, I have certainly met up with people and been like, I'm doing this thing and I don't really know how it works. Have you ever studied this thing? And they were like, yes, I spent 3 months looking at this. You should check out this author and this author. And have you spoken to this professor? Everyone talks about how lonely PhDs are, and don't worry, I'm getting onto that. But there is a community out there, and I think the University of Birmingham is trying particularly hard to encourage this sense of community. Certainly for me, I found the Welcome Week very good, and please go to your Welcome Week. Like, I know a lot of international students skip it. Don't, because it's when most people make friends, because you're all uncomfortable, you're all going to all these different events. Like, I probably met 50 plus people during Welcome Week. And yeah, I probably only stayed in touch with about 10 of them, but I would say 5 to 6 of the people I met during Welcome Week have become my really good friends during my PhD. One of them lives with me, the other ones I see regularly, even now during lockdown. We still, you know, do the hangouts and the online, the internet things. everyone's doing, we do that. Get involved with the community, because at the University of Birmingham there definitely is one there to get involved with, but you have to be willing to put yourself out there. I'd say the other good thing from the PhD so far is I'm still interested in my topic. I still feel like I'm adding something to my field of research. I so far haven't felt like I've picked the wrong thing or that I shouldn't have done a PhD. I'm also sorry if my voice is going weird. I've had a sore throat for the last like 3 days, so my voice just goes in and out, and I'm gonna apologise for that now. If I start sounding really husky, that's why. It's because my throat is giving up on me. And I would say the social side of the PhD, in a lot of ways, I've not struggled with that badly. I thought I would because of my social anxiety. It was something I was really nervous about, but actually it's been okay. It's been a lot better than I thought it would be, so that's been encouraging. Just before the lockdown went into effect, I felt like I was finally starting to gel with Birmingham as a city. I was starting to discover the places I liked in Birmingham. I was starting to get confident in exploring. I'd actually made a list of places I wanted to visit. Finally starting to find places in Birmingham that I really enjoyed, areas of Birmingham I liked exploring. I was starting to kind of establish a bit of a routine in terms of exploring the city, cafes I liked going to, you know, default places like that. The bad, kind of following on from my last good point, is that it did take me 5 months to start to feel at home in Birmingham, and I think for me that's because Birmingham as a city is quite fragmented, I would say, and it is easy to travel around if you want to go centre and out. If you want to do like spikes like that, you'll be fine. If you want to like cross, it can be a bit tricky. And as I didn't have a car, and as I was on a cheap student budget, I didn't often want to take buses that regularly. I didn't like taking the trains either. So I just struggled to find default places I could go and was comfortable going by myself. And by this I mean like cafes that I could go study in. I struggled to find, like, I still haven't explored many of the museums. I think for me it's not an easy city. It's too big where you can just go to the centre and walk around and oh, you'll see everything. It's too big and there's too much stuff happening in different areas. It's a bit like London in that sense. And I was just starting to explore the areas, but I think it does take a while to acclimatise to the city. It wasn't one of those cities I could just throw myself into. Like, Edinburgh was so small, I could just easily find my way. I knew everything I was within like 2 months. Birmingham's a bit different, but I think because of that, it is going to stay exciting and stay fresh for longer. There's definitely more going on. There's a lot of like hustle and bustle in Birmingham, which I really enjoy. So it's a bad point, but it's becoming a good point. So difficult to initially acclimatise, and that probably is partly where I lived. I lived in the Edgbaston area. It doesn't have a high street, it doesn't have a hub, so there wasn't anywhere. I couldn't sort of start exploring my local area and expand out because there wasn't like cafes I could just naturally walk to, or bookstores I could wander around, or just general stores. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't just walk and discover things. Self-isolation and lockdown hasn't been great for the PhD. I think that needs to be put in the bad category. It is something I've experienced in the first 6 months of my PhD. Obviously it's not something that hopefully people will experience again next year if you're starting next year, but that has had a knock-on effect. It's made me feel less productive. I've been less focused. It was harder to get back into a rhythm because I moved back in with my parents. I had to set up like my desk area again. So although I was able to establish a routine again fairly quickly, I would still say I lost about a week or two, and that had knock-on effects for certain deadlines. The counter-argument to that though is the university in my area reacted very well. Deadlines got extended. My supervisors were very understanding of the situation. There was a lot of information being put out there. I never felt like I was kept in the dark about anything. It felt like we knew as soon as we could know what was happening, what the situation was. But obviously it wasn't the best thing to experience 6 months into your PhD. PhD doesn't stop, just to clarify. Like, I'm still doing the PhD, I'm just doing it from my parents' house. That brings us on to the ugly. There isn't a lot in the ugly because, as I said, my overall experience has been incredibly positive. The one area that I would say has been a bit ugly, and it's definitely not a University of Birmingham only issue, is mental health and the systematic problem of mental health across PhDs is not great. I have personally felt imposter syndrome. I felt very demotivated. I have seen my mental health spiralling. My anxiety's flared up. My depression's got really bad. And it isn't that there isn't support there. There's the wellness team. My supervisors are always very understanding. But as someone who has long-term mental health issues and someone who has a lot of therapy and in theory knows how to deal with my mental health and manage my mental health, I was still shocked by how bad it can be sometimes. And I think that's just because it's a toxic combination, right? As PhD students, particularly humanities PhD students, you have no or very limited structure. You can set your own timetables, which can be good or bad. You can establish a routine or you can not. It's really up to you. You are put under an insane amount of pressure. You are expected to not only be writing, you're expected to be researching, going to conferences, networking, doing all this additional stuff. So it's this toxic combination where you have people who are probably a bit perfectionist, probably used to being like very academically focused and maybe aren't that good at balancing their life, suddenly in an environment where they're kind of told, why are you trying to balance your life? Like, your whole life should be about the PhD. Like, that's all you should be doing. And then you have no structure to kind of counterbalance it. So I would say that's the ugly side of PhDs. And I've spoken about this before. You can go check out the video on my channel where I go into it in more detail. And it does make me angry. And I think it's something that people are aware of, but I don't think anyone's come up with a fix yet. That's the ugly side of PhDs. But for me, it's not like it's worth it, because obviously mental health always comes first. But I do love the PhD. I love what I do. I love being able to research and really deep dive into a topic. For now, I'm able to manage my mental health and I'm in such a good place this week. Obviously it changes from day to day with this whole thing, but I think overall, even before lockdown and self-isolation, that is a systematic problem that isn't really being addressed and isn't really being taken seriously on a wider scale than just university to university. I mean on a more government-led countrywide scale, because obviously different universities will have different levels of support. That's my 6 months into the PhD at the University of Birmingham, my thoughts, how I found it. I hope this has helped some people, given you an idea of what to expect. Okay, bye guys.